Assalamu alaikum students, I am Shakeel Ahmad, your history teacher. Our today's topic is the War of Independence 1857. In this regard, we will discuss the reasons behind the war started. So, we will discuss different types of reasons like political, religious, social, economic, and military reasons. So, in 1857, obviously India was under the control of British. So the Indians they rose against the British, and they wanted to get India free from the British rule. In this regard, a series of uprisings started in India against the British. It was called the War of Independence by the Indian historians, but the British historian call it in a different way, like the Indian Mutiny and the Indian Revolt. So first one, we will discuss the reasons likely to be political. Uh, British had the expansion policies. Already they had gained a lot by their expansion policies. So the authority of the local rulers and Nawabs was declined. So it proved a solid reason to oppose the British rule and to rise against the British. Secondly, Lord Dalhousie's policy of the doctrine of lapse introduced in 1752. It was again, it became very unpopular among the Indians. The British control of Awadh and so many other states uh, had realized the Indians that the British were very greedy and lustful to grab more and more lands of India. Next one is the mistreatment of Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah and the royal family proved another reason of unrest because Bahadur Shah Zafar was a leading figure uh, just to unify the forces fighting in different areas. In civil service, the lack of opportunities for Indians created a lot of unrest and a feeling of discrimination among them. English had been replaced with Persian. Persian was the official language of administration as well as the medium of education. So it proved another reason. The spread of British culture was not easily acceptable by the Indians. The British treated the Indians as an inferior race. Obviously, the British were very proudful and they used to consider the Indians very inferior to them. Introduction of reforms in railways, roads, telegraph, and some other departments of the society were also unacceptable for the Indians. Indians were having traditional thoughts and they disliked the new ways of life or the reforms introduced by the British. The role of Christian missionaries and the schools set up by themselves just to convert the Indians to Christians was considered a threat for all communities living in India like Muslims, Hindus and Sikhs. Uh, Regarding economic reasons, already in the previous topics we had discussed that the uh, British they had learned big profits while trading. So later on, they got controls of different lands, and when they became authoritative, they imposed high taxes on the local Indian traders. So obviously, it was not in the favor of local Indians. So Indians opposed them. Further, the tax collectors appointed by the British were corrupt. Mostly, they used to keep some tax money collected by themselves with them, and as a result, the British had to impose more taxes on Indians just to meet the their targets. The British kept the salaries of local sepoys or army soldiers very low rather than the British army soldiers or personals. So, again, it created discrimination. Military reasons. The immediate and the foremost reason was the Greece-Carthage issues. Greece-Carthage issue we will discuss um, after a while. So the sepoys and savars were mostly Indians, but the officer class in army was British. So again, it created discrimination and feelings of inferiority. Next one, there were rumors that Muslim, Hindu, and Sikh soldiers would be forced to convert to Christianity, and obviously, it was not acceptable for the local people. The Indian soldiers might be sent abroad to fight, which was unacceptable to Hindus. Actually, in Hinduism, uh, it is uh, it is not being considered good sign to travel abroad, and being the part of British forces, um, Indians, particularly Hindus, had to travel abroad just to obey the orders of their officers. So, due to this thing, they turned against the British. The use of Indian troops in Afghanistan was disliked by both Hindus and Muslims. Again, the same philosophy was working regarding Hindus, that they had to travel to Afghanistan, they had to travel abroad, and it was considered unlucky religiously, and near Muslims. Uh, it was disliked totally because Muslims had to fight against the Muslim fellows in Afghanistan. Events. In January 1857, the British introduced a new rifle which was greased, in which the bullets or cartridges used, they were covered in grease just to lubricate, just to keep the gunpowder dry. Before it could be loaded, its end had to be bitten off with teeth, just to remove off the cap or shell. It was rumored that the grease was made from the fat of cow and pig, and obviously, cow was very sacred for Hindus, and pig was forbidden for the Muslims. So the sepoys or the soldiers got angry, and they refused to use those cartridges. In March, a sepoy, Mangal Pandey, was executed because he had defied the orders of his British army officers. Uh, in May, spies in Meerut garrison refused to touch the new cartridges. So they were being court-martialed, and they were put into prison, and then their fellow soldiers broke the prison and got them free, and they started marching towards Delhi. So it was actually the start of the War of Independence. Later on, the war spread, and in the meanwhile, the British lost different areas like Mithra, Kanpur, Jhansi, Allahabad, Delhi, and Lucknow. In Kanpur, Indian troops were led by Nana Sahab. Nana Farnavis was his name. So they rose up against the British and kept their forces trapped, kept the forces of British trapped for over 3 weeks. So, after being promised safe passage out of the city, the British surrendered. But later on, when the British left the city, Nana Sahib's forces turned on them, attacked them, and killed more than 300 women and children. So, after months, when the British had retaken and they got control, so they took revenge brutally. Um The British proved to be so powerful, and they later on they had taken back in September 1857. They regained Delhi. Bahadur Shah Zafar was removed, and his sons were being murdered. And later on, Bahadur Shah was exiled to Rangoon. Uh, in September, Lucknow was again retaken, and after the fall of Lucknow, the main center of opposition was Jhansi. So, Rani Lakshmi Bai, she was the Rani of Jhansi, and she was killed by the British forces, and then the British got the control of state of Jhansi after killing Rani of Jhansi Lakshmi Bai and his assistant Topi, and finally the British had got full-fledged control of India, and defeated the Indians in August 1858.